Bill was born in Fort Worth, Texas in 1982. He was the youngest of three brothers, Bill, Collins, and myself, all born within 3.5 years. During our childhood, we were inseparable. We had an incredible bond, and as children, we spent endless hours playing together, pretending the floor was lava, and wrestling. We also drove our parents crazy, but in a good way. I remember one summer morning when our parents put the three of us kids outside to play so that they could prepare for a family trip. I was probably 5 years old, and while Bill, Collins, and I were playing in the backyard, a red wasp stung me on the rear end. I really remember that because right after we had an 8-hour family car ride to Port Aransas, and it hurts to sit after getting stung on your bottom. Fortunately, my parents let me lie down for most of the car ride, but after that experience, I was afraid of wasps. This was difficult because every summer, red wasps were all over our backyard. My brothers wanted me to play in the backyard, but I was afraid. I didn't like being afraid, but I was. And I could just stay indoors, away from all the wasps, even though it isn't best for a kid to stay inside all summer. One day, Bill and Collins helped me to not be afraid anymore. We decided to deal with the wasps. We got our water guns, and we attacked them. We would spray them until they were soaking wet and fell to the ground. We ended up getting really good at it. We were kids, and we thought that we were fighting monsters. This activity was probably risky for Bill, since he was 2 years younger than me. But he fought the monster wasps with me, side by side. He was fearless and courageous. He helped me confront my fear and overcome it. I still knew that a wasp could sting me, but I learned how to interact with them. This allowed me to use our backyard without fear. And we played in that backyard a lot. We eventually got a basketball hoop, and as we got older, Bill and I played horse and pig a lot in that backyard. Before I left for college, the last thing that Bill and I did was to play a game of horse. I was 18 and my dad's car was loaded with all my clothes for a long drive to New Orleans, where I would live. I said goodbye to my mom and dad and Bill. Then Bill and I played that last game of horse before I got in the car. I didn't realize it at the time, but I would end up living in New Orleans for a long while. I did return to visit Fort Worth frequently during school breaks and for special occasions, such as Bill's wedding to Becca in 2003. I remember the toast I gave for Bill and Becca before their wedding, saying how happy I was for them and how they were so perfect together. I never got to move back to Fort Worth permanently, so I was very happy when Bill told me that he was going to move to New Orleans for 3 years to go to law school. We got to live in the same city. Bill had the stress of school and the hard work it required, but we made the most of it. We laughed a lot and supported each other. We went to football games, and we picked a new hobby of playing racquetball together. We enjoyed letting loose during Mardi Gras. Bill later talked about those fun times when he gave a toast as best man before my wedding. Bill's journey took a new turn after law school when he relocated to Washington, D.C. to pursue an advanced law program at George Washington University. During his time in the capital, Bill had a growing family, and this was his greatest source of joy. Embracing the roles of a devoted husband and father, he cherished the life he built with Becca and their children. When Bill finished that program, he took a job in Washington, D.C. with the Cato Institute, a well-respected think tank. The way he got this job was really neat. He went to a conference in D.C. on international trade policy, a topic that he liked, and he just started talking to some of the people there. After a few more conversations, these people were so impressed with Bill's thoughts and understanding of the subjects that they offered him a job working with them. I remember when Bill called me after accepting the job offer. He was so excited. He was getting to do a job that he was really passionate about. He knew how uncommon that was and how fortunate he was to have the opportunity. I was so proud of him, and I told him that. Bill really enjoyed working there. He told me that at times it was surreal. Everyone there had advanced degrees from all over the world, and there were volunteer students from prestigious universities working there for free, just to try and learn something from people like Bill. Bill worked hard and excelled. The website at Cato still has a section for Bill that displays all his work, including all the articles he wrote, which totaled over 170. The website contains recordings of his numerous radio appearances, including those on BBC, Voice of America, and NPR. There are videos of Bill's many public speaking engagements at conferences, where sometimes he participated as a panelist, and one when he moderated the discussion. One event had only 2 speakers, Bill and a United States Senator, both speaking on the same topic. Bill also had some TV appearances on news shows, including C-SPAN, CNBC, and CNN. Some of Bill's writings were published in the National Law Journal, the Huffington Post, Newsweek magazine, and the New York Post. Bill eventually had an opportunity to work for Cato remotely, which allowed him and his family to move back to Fort Worth. Later, Bill switched his employment to the R Street Institute, a similar DC-based organization, which sent flowers for his memorial service. Before Bill was diagnosed with cancer, he began experiencing difficulties with concentration. He struggled to maintain focus and attention, which affected his ability to work. These issues were likely connected to the tumor that initially had been growing slowly. After the cancer was discovered, Bill and I had many meaningful conversations. I wanted to talk with Bill all the time, and he came up with some creative ways for me and Collins and him to keep communicating. At Bill's suggestion, we all read the same series of 11 books. We talked frequently about the adventures of the characters and who they reminded us of. Bill's cancer treatments gave him some additional time, and Bill took advantage of that time to do something extremely important. He used his time to prepare himself and those around him for what he knew was coming. Because of this, at the end of his life, Bill was incredibly prepared, spiritually, mentally, and emotionally. Before Bill passed, he told me repeatedly about how thankful he was for the life he had, how grateful he was for his family and for his time alive. Even though he had a terminal cancer diagnosis, he had no regrets about himself, but he did worry a lot about the people around him. He worried about how his eventual passing would affect his wife and children. He worried about everyone else, but not himself. As you could imagine, when a man is dying with cancer, it could destroy his spirit and the spirit of those around him. But Bill wouldn't stand for that. He didn't let that happen. He spoke only of gratitude and thankfulness. He knew that these words would help us, and he truly felt this way. That is true courage. The courage to face death and still have the guts to do the right thing, to say the right things, and to live the right way, to prepare yourself and those around you for what is coming. Bill's courage is matched only by his wife Becca's courage. Through sheer grit and determination, Becca has kept her family going, fighting her own cancer battle while at the same time fighting for her entire family, leaving everyone in awe of her ability, strength, and the power of her love for her family. How is this possible? How could Bill and Becca be so fearless when facing their own mortality? Well, Bill told me how he did it. He told me during a conversation we had about 6 months before his passing. He told me that he thought a lot about how he should act. He said that in modern times, people often try to be themselves, to figure out what would make them happy and who they truly are, and then act accordingly. But Bill said that there is a problem with this approach. What if you figure out that, like most of us, you have some personality traits or selfishness that contribute to an attitude or actions that lead to undesirable consequences for both yourself and others? Should you still act that way because you feel it's authentic? Bill said no. He said that's not good for you, and it's not good for those around you. Bill said that we already know how we should act, that we already have the perfect example. We shouldn't try to be who we think we are. We should try to be like Jesus. That is what Bill said, and that is what he tried to do continuously. Bill told me that when he tried to be like Jesus, he focused on loving everyone and treating them with compassion and respect. He focused on being grateful for his life and for the people in it. He said that even though the cancer made him very weak physically, he was not useless as long as he acted like Christ. He could go to his doctor appointments and treat everyone he saw with dignity and respect and compassion, and that by doing that he could make a small positive difference in the lives of everyone he encountered, which was extremely empowering for him. And when anyone asked him how he felt, he talked about gratitude. He would tell you how thankful he was for his life and for everyone in it. He would tell you that he felt so fortunate to have a wife and kids. Now that Bill is gone, the road ahead can be difficult for his children, Harriet, Bruce, and Arthur. I want to remind his children that when times are tough, turn to those who love you, your mother first, but then also your uncles, aunts, cousins, and grandparents. We all love you. I also want to recommend to Bill's children that when things get difficult, that you do what your father did, that you turn to Jesus, and that you do something specific, that you look at the cross. Bill and I discussed this. We discussed that if you look at the cross, you can remember the fate of Christ. We discussed how Christ was a man who at the end of his life was betrayed and denied by his friends. He was tortured and killed in a horrible way. As a man, Jesus preached love, and he did not deserve to be tortured and killed, but he was. As we know, when Jesus suffered on the cross, near the end, he even thought that God had abandoned him. Yet he still loved everyone, and he loved those who tortured him, and he prayed for his torturers to be forgiven. Bill and I talked about how the cross is the device upon which Jesus was killed. We discussed how maybe it is strange that we prominently display the cross on top of our church steeples and in our homes, when that cross is the equipment that was used to torture and kill Jesus. But then we discussed another story, an older one, the story of how when the Israelites left the tyranny of Egypt, they faced terrible hardships in the desert, and they faced snakes. Moses asked God to help with the snakes. As the story goes, God did help, but not by getting rid of the snakes. Bill and I talked about how God told Moses to hang a snake from a staff and have people look at it. Just look at the snake. We discussed that in some ways this could be similar to modern exposure therapy, where people learn how to overcome their fears by encountering them in a safe environment. For example, a fear of heights can often be overcome by incrementally being exposed to heights in an environment that you know is safe. Or how a child who is afraid of wasps can overcome that fear by confronting the wasps when his brothers are with him. To learn how to deal with snakes, we have to watch snakes and study them. Snakes will exist and evil will exist, and it is better for us to gain power over evil by learning how to interact with it. To move forward, we must face our fears, whether that is snakes or wasps in a backyard or even death itself. And maybe then it starts to make sense why we display the cross that was used to kill Jesus, why we should face it. Bill and I discussed that if you look at the cross, you can remember the evil and horrible death that Jesus endured. But if you look long enough and move beyond the fear, you can also start to see something else. You can see the way that Jesus overcame his death by using his death to give us something, to give us all a better existence, by showing us how to face evil and death and still want the best for each other, how to still love one another, how to treat each other with dignity, compassion, and respect, to show us how to move beyond our past ways of thinking and our past sins with the hope that we would sin against each other no more. In the end, Bill had the courage to intentionally live like Christ. And by living like Christ, Bill showed us the way forward after Bill died. He showed us how we could live better in this world. He showed us how, despite the horrible things in this world, we can still love one another, we can still serve one another, and we can still do our best to stop sinning against each other and treat each other with kindness and respect. When someone is sick and dying, the tragedy can tear that person apart. It can emotionally destroy them and those around them, and the sickness can turn them against the world, against hope, against all love. Bill wouldn't stand for that. He pitted himself against that fate. He courageously stood against it for the sake of everyone that he knew and loved. He used his last remaining time to help those around him, to help us see the truth, that we all should be grateful for our lives, that none of us deserve to even exist. Yet here we are, existing together with one another. For that, we should all be grateful. I want to say thank you to my brother Bill for showing me this truth and for living this truth. This past weekend, I returned to my childhood home, where my mom still lives. It is summertime, so the red wasps are in the backyard, the same wasps that I faced as a child, and I was not afraid because my brothers were with me. There is also a newer basketball hoop in that backyard, one that Bill picked out and Collins and I set up so that Bill's kids could play on it when they visit. To Bill's kids, I want to say that when you play back there, I hope you remember how great your dad was and how he helped many people, including me. How when Bill faced death, he looked right at it, and he was not afraid. because Christ was with him. And then Bill confronted the darkness of death, and he let God's love shine on the darkness, illuminating a path for us all. Bill told me one time that he knew that he was not made for this world permanently, and that this was not his final home. I miss you, Bill, and I strive to see you again someday.